I have a question, says Elba. Jean-François Bayard, do you think that geography can help design these cultural areas? Well, not really. One famous example is that of the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean is a geographic object which seems to be easy to grasp because it's an inner sea, and we all dream of the Mediterranean climate. And I think that we've all traveled enough across the Mediterranean Sea to understand that the so-called Mediterranean climate does not exist. There is still a so-called climate with olive trees, and you also have mountains, and that doesn't have anything to do. It quite often snows in Lebanon, for instance. So geographers have deconstructed this idea of the Mediterranean based on the historical view of geography of Mediterranean. The Mediterranean was only defined through trade, cabotage trading. So it's an area where there's a lot of circulation, and you can only understand the Mediterranean only because it has connection with the Sahara, with what is called the interior Asia, Iran, etc., or the Silk Road. The Mediterranean is an area of trade and exchanges, which has resulted in an ideological construction which is always politically biased. The Nazis were claimant of a certain concept of the Mediterranean and claiming that the Greek aesthetic was their climax, and they've killed so many people from the Mediterranean. The Jews from Algeria who found shelter in France after the War of Independence of Algeria were perceived as Jews and not as French nor as Algerian. I'm not sure that today we would give to St. Augustine a Schengen visa. St. Augustine was born in Algeria, even though it might seem a bit anachronic, but it is true. So the geographic areas and spaces are always constructed ideologically and politically constructed, that is. So it's the French imagination to think that there is a natural border. Millions of French have died on the Rhine, the so-called natural border between France and Germany. It doesn't have any political meaning. Nicolas Sarkozy didn't want to have Turkey become a member of the European Union and joining the European Union because geographically Turkey does not belong to Europe, which confirms that Nicolas Sarkozy was probably not a good student at school. And in 1999, when there was the earthquake, it didn't stop in the middle of the Bosphorus, thinking that there was a natural border. And it had shaken Istanbul because there is no such thing as a natural border, on both sides of the Bosphorus. It's an ideological misconception. Geography may be useful, but certainly not to define so-called cultural areas.